This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome into the practice squad. I'm going to pull the curtains back to start the whole damn show. I'm 5 minutes late to every recording we ever do, which is kind of funny because, Stroz, I've always grown up, like my entire life growing up until really the last couple of years, I was a guy who was too early to everything. I literally can't tell you, like, I was never beat to anything. If there were plans, I was there before anyone 100% of the time. And I kind of just think like what happened is over the last few years when I started taking care of myself more than worrying about other people, I got tired of people wasting my time because I'd show up early, they show up late. And it's like the early part is on me, but the being late part, like that's just the culture I feel like we live in. Mm-hmm. So I said, screw it. I'm going to be the late one. Everyone's always wasting my time. Nah, I'm going to waste yours. Now, I think you tell me if you disagree. I think I'm mostly reasonable. I'm usually within 5 minutes.
Yeah, usually within 5 minutes.
But today, I'm making a freaking point to get ready on time because I was excited for this first topic and my computer just takes a complete dump. And instead of being on time or my usual 5 minutes late, I'm 15 minutes late. So I'm excited for what we got lined up today, but I just wanted to like let people in and know.
I totally could have got a half-hour nap in right before we did this show.
No, I mean, I was at least 15 minutes late. And it wasn't.
You were sending me images like, look at my computer. It's taking a shit right now.
Well, because you got to understand, like, honestly, I think you need to look at the fact that I'm 15 minutes late and the way I reacted and take what that means to me. Like, I'm not a person who's late to anything. My first ever podcasts, we're going way off the rails already. I don't know.
It's going to be a good show. That's how you know it's going to be a good show.
Yeah. My first ever podcast was with a friend who's the same way. And for the first, like, 4 or 5 episodes, because we recorded at his house, I showed up like 15 minutes before I was supposed to and just sat in my car outside. And one day he goes, you know, like, I'm early to everything. So if you just text me, I'm probably going to be ready to go. And so, like, I just, like, gave up. And I think that even made it worse because now I had a friend who was early to everything, too. So we'd make plans for 4:30 and we'd both meet at 4:15.
Just ready to go. Like, are you ready? Let's do it. Come on.
It came from my dad. My dad was that way with everything. He's always like, my dad would be like, okay, we're going to leave the house at noon to get there at 12:30 for something that's only 15 minutes away. And then we'd leave at 11:45.
Holy cow.
So, anyways, that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today. Coming up in about 10, 15 minutes, there's a hurricane. I got lucky. It avoided Houston almost entirely. I mean, I woke up
I love how you moved to Houston, and the things that have been thrown at you in roughly a year's time has been absolutely incredible.
I want you to understand, I mean, yes, but if you look at, like, all the crap that I've had, like, in the last 3 years of my life, I had a 6.5-year relationship end. I've had 3 different jobs. It's more like 3.5 years, but 3 different jobs. I've lived in 4 different apartments. Oh, there's a pandemic. I moved across the country.
Like 2 different states.
Yeah, like it's been a lot more than you're normally supposed to have happen in 3 to 3.5 years. So we're going to talk about that experience. And in about 20, 30 minutes to wrap up the podcast, I think most people are struggling, at least on some level, to feel like football's coming. As we record this, it's 2 weeks away from the first game. It's been solved for me. It hasn't been solved for Stroz yet. We're going to break that down. But first, I already knew I wanted to talk about this on this podcast. And I don't know that we've ever gotten into anything remotely political. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I do. But I think we tend to stay away from it on this show. But with everything going on in the NBA yesterday and today and the MLB, not the MLB as a whole, but teams following suit. And what I'm talking about, of course, is games being canceled because players refuse to show up and play.
The NHL, I think they've suspended their playoffs.
Well, that took some pressure. I'm not just being honest.
No, it did take some pressure. You're right. It did.
But yeah, it did happen.
Your face was priceless.
Stroz. The NHL being the last to react was incredibly predictable, right?
I mean, I think so.
I mean, and I'll say this much. I give them credit for taking that step because when like a friend texted me and said today's the day sports stopped or something like that yesterday. And I was like, hockey's still going. And he goes, I don't really count them. Like, they were never going to stop. So I will give them credit because I didn't think they were ever going to stop for social justice reasons. I just didn't think that was something the NHL would do. But anyways, I want to talk about it because like there's so many different angles we can go on it. And again, if you follow me on Twitter at @BrennanRiley_, you know where I stand. But particularly, Stroz and I, we disagree in one area. And I know a lot of people, like you're not in a small grouping. And that's that, like, I have the belief that, like, honestly, I thought it was inspiring. I think what the NBA players did was inspiring. And we now know they're going to return to play. And I think for some people, that makes it even less meaningful. I'll say this. I think it would have been a bigger statement to entirely shut down the NBA playoffs, but I don't think it was necessary. Like, I think it's.
Oh, see, I think that might be our hot button issue because we kind of fleshed this out, but I think by them canceling the entire season, I think it does a total disservice to what you're trying to push forward. Because their statement is, I think you remove their entire podium. You remove their entire piece of leverage by canceling the entire season. By staying in the bubble and playing, you as a player, you help push your voice that much more forward. If you just say, hey, we're done, then cool. This is cool for 5-6 days. But after that, it gets forgotten about.
I do understand what your thought process is, but we've been back in the bubble for some time now. And look, I know that they have messages on their jerseys, and I know that they have BLM on the court, but Stroz, pre-sanctioned protests aren't protests. That doesn't mean there's no value in them. I want that to be clear. I'm not saying putting Black Lives Matter on the court is meaningless. It's absolutely not. But what happens when you come out and say, we're not playing today, this isn't the NBA's decision, this is our decision, is you put it on the line how much this matters to you. And that's why I do believe canceling the season would have been massive, Stroz, because that would have been a big money move. Literally, would have taken a lot of money out of the pockets of players and owners and everybody involved. And, you know, to sacrifice and look, you can think of it as you may. It's a sacrifice what the players have done to go play basketball. I'm not comparing it to joining the military or anything like that, but leaving your family for weeks and being stuck in a bubble and being, by the way, let's not forget, from the beginning, there was concerns because the NBA players, many of them were so heavily involved in these Black Lives Matter protests. There was concerns that they wouldn't be able to be a part of that anymore. And so these players did sacrifice something to go and do this. And to just cancel the season on a whim, that's not fair to put it that way. But to cancel the season after giving that all up, I think it would have spoke volumes. Because here's why I think it's valuable, Stroz. And I haven't heard your opinion yet for why you don't think it makes a difference. Because that's what you've basically told me, is you don't think it makes a difference. I understand that NBA players aren't congressmen. I understand that directly the NBA athletes have zero ability to create change on their own. But I don't believe change happens like that. You know, policies don't change by magic. Police officers don't stop shooting black people by magic. Like, it's not that simple. It takes time. You know, I think it's absolutely incredible the way public perception of the Black Lives Matter movement has changed over the last 4 or 5 years. I have friends, and genuinely friends, like people I care about, who, when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, called Black Lives Matter movement a terrorist organization, who now say they support the movement. In 5 years, not even. It was 4 years yesterday, the first time he took a knee. That doesn't happen by magic. That happens by people sharing their messages, sharing their stories. And what happened by the NBA shutting down yesterday, if you're paying attention, if you're not, that's one thing, but you are never going to be, if you're shutting this stuff out, there's no hope. If you're paying attention, you listen to Chris Webber speak. You listen to Robert Horry speak. You listen to what the Bucks statement was. What you hear is pain. And I do believe genuinely that there are people who, the reason that they don't stand for change is because they haven't been around this. They haven't heard these stories. And there's some people who there's no hope for it. They will never listen to you. But I think there's a lot of people who just haven't been around it. You know, like, I grew up we both did, in a fairly diverse area. Not everyone had that experience. And if you didn't have that experience, I think being exposed to the raw emotion of what some of these people are sharing, their stories, their feelings, their fears. I think being exposed to that raw emotion, I think it makes a difference in public opinion. And I think public opinion is how you start the process of policy change.
My stance on it is I don't think you not playing your basketball game or you not playing your playoff basketball game makes a damn bit of difference. I think what you're looking for and what we need is greater social change. That doesn't come necessarily from NBA players skipping a game. Now, I get what you're saying, and I totally understand what you're saying. And look, I want it to be known that I totally support the players not playing the game.
Support the cause.
Yes, for sure. 110%. Like, I think there's a huge issue with the social ramifications that we have in this country. I mean, if you just look at this one specific incident, this the Jacob Blake incident, and then you look at what is it, Kyle Rittenhouse. So you just look at the way both those situations transpired. They're just on opposite ends of the spectrum. That right there, that is the problem. That is what we're talking about. I totally support us having a reform and us having change. I just don't think that NBA players or Major League Baseball players or NHL hockey players just not playing the game, I don't think that does enough. I think what you need... No,
hold on. Let's stop there. I'm trying to let you... Because you let me talk forever, so I don't want to interrupt you too much. Let's stop there for a second. It doesn't do enough. Strongly agreed. But I believe it's as much as NBA players can do. Sorry, go on.
Well, I think they can do a lot more. I think what they have to do is they have to start leveraging their owners. And I think that's why you can't just stop the season. Because where does this hurt the owners? It hurts them in their pocketbook. So their owners are connected. You know, I tuned into your show today, and I think it was your show where they talked about, I listened to a bunch of different sports talk radio today. But I tuned into your show, and I think it was your show where they talked about what happened with Meek Mills and how Robert Kraft was able to leverage getting him out of jail. You have to leverage these owners and have the owners, because the owners are the ones who are super connected at the top. Players have connections to the owners. Owners have connections to the politicians. And that's where it really has to go. You have to start at the bottom here, and then you've got to work your way up. If the players can leverage the owners to leverage politicians to then make the social change, then we're going someplace. But it was just 3 months ago that everybody was taking a stand for George Floyd, and now we're 3 months removed, and look, you've got a guy getting shot in the back 7 times. It's almost like it didn't do anything.
But what you're asking for, like, let's take it to that step. NBA players are forcing the owners' hands to get active in creating change, which, by the way, I still think is very much a step that's in play. I haven't removed it. I'm just saying it's just, this is where we're at now. And 3 months ago, we're basically at the same spot. But hold on, like, yeah, and 60 years ago, we were in the middle of a civil rights movement. And dude, I mean, the simplest way of explaining how long this freaking process takes is honestly talking about Emmett Till, who would be 80 right now, like 79, I believe. He would be alive. Like, so forgive me if 3 months after protest, everything hasn't changed. There's no world where NBA players can stop these shootings, these killings without repercussion in 3 months. It's just not possible. But I believe if nothing else at all, this is NBA players, one, putting the stories out in front. People, again, I'm sure there's many more, but the two who moved me the most were Chris Webber and Robert Horry. And Robert Horry was incredible, talking about how, like, he was crying. He's already lost a child. And I don't know the story about how he lost a child, but how afraid he is to lose another and how he's so powerless in that. And that's not something that Stroz, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm not going to fear my child being shot by the police. It's not the world I live in. But at the very least, that's what happened. And I also think on top of that, there's an aspect of NBA players flexing to owners and saying, look, this matters. This isn't something you write on the court. Like, we care about this, and we're going to only get louder. And so maybe, honestly, if you want to say it didn't go as far as it could have or as far as it should have, I'm willing to listen to that. But I'm not going to, like, in general, I hate to say, hey, appreciate your protest, but you should have done more. I'm not saying the NBA players have done everything perfectly, because we do disagree. I actually think ending the season would send a stronger message. But I don't know how, like, I don't know how you can look at it and say it did nothing. Because I'll tell you this, like, it also reinvigorated people, man. Like, you talk about George Floyd being 3 months ago, and I understand that there are some people who have done incredible jobs staying out there and staying on the front lines at protests and keeping this in the minds of whoever they can. But let's be real, man. 3 months ago, we spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks with this being the only thing we saw in front of our face. And then it's disappeared. Disappeared is a strong word, but it's tapered off. This brought it back to the forefront. And guess what? 2 or 3 months from now, it's going to disappear again. It's the way it works. But
see, but I think that's part of the problem, though, right? I think the ebbs and the flow, right? And look, you worked in media, I worked in media. It's the media cycle, right? It's this is hot now. This is what's big. So this is what's in your face.
I think it's human nature. I don't think it's a media thing.
Okay.
Protests. If protests slow down, you're going to carry them less. Like, I've been seeing about protests in some cities where they're still going on, but where I live in Houston, 3 months ago, my Walmart closed at 3 p.m. because they were blocking off the windows. That hasn't been the reality in Houston the last month or two.
So here's the thing, right? And this is something that I shared with you, but like I haven't shared this with our audience, right? I kind of have like a foster daughter, right? It's long story how it happened and what it is, right? She's like super brown. And she is super activist. Like, she's involved in all of these protests. Like, the protests haven't slowed down. Protests go on every day. She's out there. She's part of all of them. And I think my biggest fear is when she goes to these, what's going to happen to her, right? Like, what's going to be the police response? So my thing is we have to have scheduled check-ins. We got to have, make sure you're okay. You got to like she would take her phone and her phone would die 2 hours into this damn protest because she would be trying to tape it all. And like, it's like, okay, no, here, this is what we have to do now. Now you got to get a charger. You got to have a portable charger. You got to do this. Like, you have to be able to check in. You got to let us know what's going on, because the fear is something bad is going to happen to her. Right. And it's one of those things where the protests haven't stopped. I think a lot as far as like the media goes, it's not as salacious anymore. So there are other things that they're covering.
It's not to say they don't exist currently, but I don't think they're anywhere near. I knew at one time dozens of people going to protest every day. I don't think I personally know more than 5 right now. And I think that's being generous. I don't know if I know a single person who's going to protests multiple times a week. And there was a time when I could name double-digit people.
Multiple people.
Protests every day. So protests, they haven't ended, but they've slowed down. And I do think the NBA doing this kind of stuff reinvigorates people. It brings people back into a conversation that they care about, but maybe not as much as they need to.
So this is what I think is good about them, about everything shutting down and them not playing, right? It is now, again, it's in the front, it's in front of your face. Like, we're talking about this, like you and I. You know what I'm saying? John and I spent a couple minutes on our show the other day talking about it. So, it is now right in front of your face. And it is forcing a discussion. And sometimes that discussion is uncomfortable for people to either A, listen to, or B, have. And I think what happens is when you take a moment to do some self-reflection, and that's probably the hardest part, is really looking at yourself and trying to figure out why you either A, don't want to have this conversation, or B, want to tune it out. I think that is where you will do probably some of your best growing, and you will learn a whole lot about yourself. Why you don't necessarily want to either talk about it or B, hear about it, And you're right. It pushes it more into the front of everybody's face. I don't know if it will do enough to enact the change that has to be enacted.
I 1000% agree with you. I just don't believe the NBA has, like, NBA athletes have that power individually. I believe this is a process that this country's been dealing with for 400 years. And if I'm going to be honest with you, Stroz, I think 400 years from now, probably still going to be dealing with it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it looks a lot better now than it did then. I'm sorry. Hopefully it looks a lot better then than it does now.
Change is slow.
Yeah.
Change is very slow.
So no, I don't believe the NBA players doing this is going to mean these things stop happening. But I do think it only continues to like I said, I think it's incredible the way the public perception of Black Lives Matter has changed in 5 years. And I do strongly believe the conversations that Colin Kaepernick started, while many of them weren't pretty and many of them probably weren't beneficial, as a whole, I absolutely believe he played a role in changing the public perception of Black Lives Matter. And I believe that the NBA athletes doing what they're doing it only continues to do that, because when you hear people speak and you hear the fear they have, even if you don't think their fear is justified, I think you hear it and you respect it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can't hear that and like that's all you need to do, I think, is hear that. Like, genuinely listen to it and hear that. And I think it is a start to change. This is an important conversation, so I don't want to end it abruptly. Is there anything else you want to get into before we move forward?
No, we can move on to you and Hurricane Watch.
Probably a little bit more lighthearted the rest of the way. Again, coming up in 10, 15 minutes. I'm ready for some football. Stroz, not so much, not yet. But yeah, so I'm going to let you take the lead. Middle segments have been very different lately. To give you a little background, if you're not aware, Hurricane Laura, I believe it ended up hitting land as a high-end Category 4 hurricane near the Louisiana-Texas border. For a long time, it was looking like a very real possibility it was going to hit Houston. And it did very serious damage where it hit. Obviously, not fortunate for anybody who was in the path of it. Fortunate for me that I escaped it. But it was something I've had my eye on for a couple of weeks because we were prepared for this to be pretty bad.
So how do you go about preparing for something like this? I mean, you said yourself you've been preparing for it for a couple weeks. You guys have been monitoring it and watching it. So how do you go about preparing for something like this? Because look, I've lived through a couple earthquakes. In Hamtramck, we had a tornado that came through and basically did a ton of damage. Never, ever have I ever lived through what I would deem a water tornado in a hurricane.
Well, okay, first things first. If you're looking for hurricane prep advice, go to somebody other than me. I've been here for a little over a year. But some of the things I did, you get prepared should you not have power for an extended period of time, because that's a very real possibility. So I bought a 40-pack of water and then 2 gallons. They tell you to have a minimum of 3 days prepared. 2 weeks is ideal. I don't know how long a 40-pack and 2 gallons would last me. I drink a lot of water, but I feel like safely, like even comfortably, I probably could have gotten by about a week on that. But also you need to have food ready. And I'll be honest with you, like the food I would have had wouldn't have been fun. I have 6 pounds of rice. I do have some pancake mix. Because I specifically got that because a friend mentioned during Harvey, he was stuck for a few days and just ate a lot of pancakes. And I was like, I could think of a worse world. You
could totally get by with some pancake mix and basically just pancake mix. You could do okay with that.
I'm trying to think, what else do I have? I have chicken in a can, which I didn't know was a real thing until recently. Never had it, so I'm not looking forward to ever trying it. But just, you get food food ready.
Let me ask you this.
Batteries, flashlights.
Do you eat tuna fish? Like tuna fish out of a can?
Nah, I'm not a tuna fish guy.
You're not a tuna fish guy. So like I'm like I when I was a kid, this is what my diet consisted of. Like my mom would send me to lunch every day with tuna fish, and it was horrible. Like I would go to school and I would try pawning my tuna fish sandwiches off on people because I got tired of eating it for 3 months straight. So then she like stopped giving me tuna fish, and like now, like I love tuna fish. Like I will eat it. Like at nighttime, I'll look at my macros because I track my food, and I'm like, oh cool, I'm short a little bit of protein for the day. I'll go rip open a couple cans of tuna fish, drain it, eat it. It's good. Not a tuna fish guy though.
The other big thing, if it's a bad enough hurricane, you could run into situations where there's a gas shortage, so you fill up your car. But to be honest with you, my plan for the majority of the time was, if it was serious, to stay at work. They have a generator, so I was going to have power. I got to give them a lot of credit. The night before the hurricane was supposed to hit, even though we pretty much knew at that point it wasn't going to be too serious here, they not just filled, they brought up a whole new fridge that wasn't in, like, we didn't have this fridge. I don't know if we purchased it or we rented it or what happened, but there was a new fridge on our floor filled with food for people. I think primarily for people who were there for coverage overnight, but also like if you got stuck there for days at a time or something like that. So I had a suitcase packed ready to go. It was only 3 days worth of clothes, so if I would have been stuck longer than that, it would have sucked. but just a small suitcase, ready to be stuck at work because it was a possibility. And I think it would have been more comfortable to be stuck there than at home, to be honest with you.
So you got lucky enough to where the hurricane didn't really impact Houston. Like all you got was what? A little bit of rain.
A little bit of wind, maybe a little bit of rain, but like not even severe rain.
So now you're stuck at home with 6 pounds of rice, pancakes for days, and what would constitute all the water in the world with two gallons and 40 packs.
I told you, I think yesterday when we were planning the segments, my dad called me and goes, "I want you to buy 4 28 packs and 4 gallons of water." And I was like, no.
Negatory, Batman.
You don't think he was very happy with me telling him no?
No.
But the thing is, like, I just didn't see the need for all that. Like, for example, when Harvey hit, Houston's tap water was still drinkable. Like, now there were concerns that it wouldn't be, but it was. So, like, what was it going to take for me to need a month's supply of water? I'm kind of curious to know where you are, because, like, my dad was, like, extra cautious. I tend to be a little bit more cautious. Like, do you think I bought too much water?
For the situation that you were in, no, I don't think you bought too much water. Now, this is what's funny, right? I think I'm at the other end. So your dad's like way over here, right? And you're like somewhere in the middle.
My dad's like, make sure you have a swimming pool worth of water per day.
right. And like you're somewhere in the middle. And I think I'm like at the opposite end of your dad, where I'm just kind of like, cool, we'll just kind of see what happens and we'll just kind of roll the dice.
So I will tell you, one of my hosts said that in preparation of possibly losing power, he was going to buy chicken wings, like a lot of chicken wings, because apparently it's something he's comfortable eating out at room temperature. Chicken wings are not something I'm comfortable eating at room temperature, but I like the idea. So I actually bought pizza the day before.
I was going to say, did you go with the good old standby of pizza?
Well, because like if like we were to lose power for a significant period of time, I was going to be eating a lot of food I didn't enjoy. Mm. So it was like the first couple days I'll get by on pizza. So yeah, I bought pizza. I actually thought it was a really good idea.
How many pizzas did you buy? How many pizzas did you buy?
You know what's funny is by the time I bought it, I felt pretty comfortable that it wasn't going to be that bad. So I just bought one. If it looked like it was going to hit us, here's the problem though. If it looked like it was going to hit us, I was going to stay at work. If it looked like a possibility, I probably would have bought 2 or 3.
I love how our show, I love how our show will always be consumed by pizza. At any chance you get, if if you go and you can find, if you can go find.
I know I talk about pizza a lot, but I think you dramatically overblow it. I think what are we on? Episode 36?
Yes. If you go back, at least a third of our programming has been consumed with pizza.
No way we've talked about pizza 12 times.
Absolutely. Pizza comes up in our shows all the time.
Sure,
and specifically your love of pizza comes up in our shows.
The word pizza has probably been said 12 different shows. I will give you that.
The word pizza has probably been said 17 times in the 36 shows that we have done.
Sure, that's not even that much. We do 45-minute shows. Hold on, let's do the math real quick. The average show is 45 minutes, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
This is going to be the 36th show. Mm-hmm. Let's make it an hour. We've done 27 hours of show. If you're telling me you don't say the word pizza 17 times for 27 hours, I'm not sure I believe you.
We do a sports podcast, and yet pizza has somehow worked its way.
It's not even that much.
Amazing.
This is the question of the show. This is the question of the show. We're talking about hurricanes. Apparently, we're talking about pizza. At Brendan Riley _ at Adam R. Stroz, do you on average talk about pizza? I'm sorry, no. Say the word pizza at least 17 times per 27 hours. I think everyone's going to say no, but you're lying to yourself because one conversation about pizza includes the word at least 17 times.
I had absolutely no idea where this segment was going to go, and I love where it went. It found its way back to pizza, which is always close to your heart.
That's your fault. Don't put this on me.
Look, I'm good at what I did.
The fact that I bought a pizza, but then you had to lie and talk about how badly I need to talk about pizza. You're full of shit.
Look, I'm good at what I do. I can't help it. All right, it's what it is.
Yeah, you're really good at lying. I don't know what to tell you.
If you ask my ex-wife, she'll tell you the same thing.
Woo! You said it.
So football.
Yeah,
where are you at on football?
Transition. Lead it away, man. Go ahead and tell me your problems. You're sitting on the therapy couch right now.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Football season's what, roughly 2.5 weeks away? Like the NFL kicks off in like 2.5 weeks.
It's exactly 2 weeks from today.
All right, there you go. Kicks off in 2 weeks from today. And I just there's no juice for me. I've got nothing. I've got a fantasy draft coming up on Sunday, got moved to Sunday. And then I got another fantasy draft next Saturday. And that is the only thing pushing me into the football season right now. I've got no college football. I've got no preseason games to watch. I've got to go to YouTube and I'm watching these these videos from these guys who do fantasy football, just trying to get kind of coached up on what I should be looking for and what I should be watching for as I prep for a draft.
Before we dive deeper into this, you've always been an anti-preseason guy, haven't you?
No, I enjoy the preseason.
Okay. I just think there's a lot of people who disrespect what the preseason is.
Oh, no. I love
most of them feel the same way you do right now. Yeah. And I think if nothing else, this year has given you a newfound love or respect, maybe love's a little too strong, newfound respect for what the NFL preseason is.
No. So I enjoy the preseason actually quite a bit. There's some
kind of like foreplay.
No, exactly. That is exactly what it is. If in your case, right? It's like a meal. This is your appetizer. This is your bread that comes to the table with butter. But no, this is foreplay. This is when she shows up at your house and she's got a trench coat on and she takes it off and she's got some sexy lingerie underneath there and you're like, ooh, what am I about to get?
See, the preseason is nice and long and drawn out. It's 4 weeks. So even after she takes off that trench coat, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Hey, look, you can go down on it. You can diddle it with a finger. You can flip it over, lick it, spit it, rub it down, whatever you got to do.
Anyway,
stretching it out. No, but there's something special about that first preseason game, right? I absolutely love it. I remember sitting down on my couch in Detroit with my stepdad, taking in a Lions preseason. This is the one memory I have about preseason. We sat down together to take in a Lions preseason game. It was August something or another. It was probably August 1st or something. I have no idea. Maybe August 13th. I have no clue. It was way back in the day. I was a child. Again, this is when we lived in Detroit. So I was probably 10. So we sat down together to watch this game and take it in. And I was geared up for it, man. And I always carry that with me for every single first preseason game of the season. And then it kind of tapers off. You get excited for the third one because you're like, okay, cool. We're going to actually see the guys do some things. They're going to maybe play a quarter, maybe play 2. They might leave them in for a series in the third. You're not expecting a ton, but you're going to get to see what real football is going to actually be like for this season. And you know what? This year, we've got none of that. We've got none of it.
I've been in the same place as you. I think we should mention when we first started watching the Practice Squad Presents the Throwback, that actually got me excited for football a little bit, but we've been watching it we've watched so many games at this point that's kind of faded. We're almost 2.5 seasons in, but I was in the same place. It's hard to get excited for football when it's not here yet. I have my main league drafting tomorrow, so that helps a little bit. Really, the big thing that did it for me is the return of best ball. And I think we may have talked about this a little bit last year. Best ball fantasy drafts are literally all you do is you draft a team.
Explain this to me, because you're like, this is what got me excited. And I was like, what the hell is it?
So would you agree the draft is the best part of fantasy football?
Yeah, absolutely.
So all best ball is you draft a team and then it plays the whole season out on its own. Every single week, it will start the best lineup for you that you possibly could have started. Now, you don't play head-to-head matchups. It's just total points. But so every week it starts the best possible lineup you could have, and then whoever has the most points wins the money.
It's kind of like a rotisserie league for baseball.
A little bit, but where I think it's different is you're not playing a best ball league. You're playing 100 best ball leagues. You're doing this, you're not actually tracking. I mean, some people do, but generally speaking, you're not tracking the leagues. The fun, you're just doing the draft because it's fun, and then you come back and look at the end of the year and see how much money you got.
That sounds so crazy. It sounds so crazy and so foreign to me.
I've done 7 or 8 drafts probably in the last week and a half. And because drafts are the most fun part, that's what's really getting me back into football mode. And I'll say this, I'm not where I would be if we had preseason games, because I haven't gotten like this is like what I would tell you, Stroz, is where we compared the preseason to the girl coming over in the trench coat and then whipping it off. Best ball drafts are like porn. They get it started, but not on the same level.
This might be my all-time favorite segment. You remember how you're asking what's your favorite segment? This might be my all-time favorite segment.
Yeah, I did.
And it's because you've led this. You led this right into my wheelhouse. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it right now. A little bit uncomfortable.
I think it's a genuine comparison. Dude, the preseason gets you excited. It gets you going. And like, I don't know. But it's not like it's the real thing, right? Porn is the perfect comparison because it gets you excited, it gets you there, and you're like, it might help you finish, but it's definitely not the real thing. It is definitely not like having. It's funny because I entered this conversation thinking like we're in different places, and we are. Like I am ready for football now, which is something I couldn't have said 2 weeks ago. But the excitement level is definitely not as high as it normally would be. Like I'm ready, but I'm just I don't know, man. Like I'm just not as excited as normal.
Mm-hmm. That's like I've got zero giddy up and go.
Yeah, you're not ready.
No, like this is the thing I love about the preseason, right? Preseason, I get to look at some of these guys who were drafted. I get to look at some of these rookies. I get to kind of test my own knowledge and challenge myself.
I enjoy watching that stuff, but really it's just having the semblance of football in front of me.
Yeah, see, no, like when preseason rolls around, I'm trying to test my own intelligence here. I want to see like, hey, what did you think about this guy? Where he was drafted? How does he look now? How do you think this team's going to utilize him? Like, there's a whole lot that goes into it. And it's really and truly, a lot of it is just for fantasy purposes. It's just trying to try to find a sleeper or try to find somebody who's going to be sneaky good on my fantasy teams.
I don't disagree. I do all that same stuff. Mm-hmm. And maybe later in the preseason, I'll say that. As you get later in the preseason and you start to know how the roster battles look, I enjoy watching those a little bit closer later on in the preseason. But like week 1 and 2, I'm just excited to see Lions football. And I'll be honest, that's what it is. I'm excited to see Lions football. Of course, gambling in the preseason makes it better too. So
for sure.
Yeah, you don't gamble. Have you gambled on preseason football before?
No, never.
Okay. You said
what kind of degenerate do I look like? I've gambled on football before.
Can I get you to do a best ball draft with me?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
All right.
I mean, you don't got to twist my arm.
All you have to do, you'll set to create an account on. I use DraftKings, but FanDuel has it as well, and we'll draft a team together. When's your draft?
I have a draft at 5:00 on Sunday.
Okay, so try and do it before then.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, sometime before then, and I'll give you your first taste. You'll get excited just in time for your draft.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, you don't have to twist my arm, man. Whatever you want to do, we can play fantasy football. We can do best ball. We can do
we're gonna do best ball.
It'll be great. Look, I do love gambling. The problem with gambling is I don't trust myself to not become super addicted.
All you ever talk about is how you don't trust yourself as a gambler. You do it every single week.
That's not true. We've talked about it maybe 3 times.
Yeah, it's like the 3rd time in like 4 weeks. Stroz, do you have a problem? Do I need to stop joking and take this seriously?
No, I don't, because I can control myself. Not yet.
All right. I don't really have a whole lot else.
No, man. You know what? Going into this show, I thought we were going to have blood and guts in the first segment. I had no clue where the second segment was going. And really and truly, you made me feel really good about myself in the third segment. So thanks for putting me on the therapy chair.
Hold on.
I don't know. You just did. Like, I'm over here laughing. We're having a great time. We're yucking it up.
Can I validate your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your tendency to draw everything back to sex?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
It's definitely something we've done a little bit more on the show in the last, in the rebirth of the practice squad. Whether it's John Beeline versus Jordan Howard or Juwan Howard rather, or if it's the NFL preseason, I guess it's something we're going to do sometimes, but that's going to do it. It's been a fun one. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you have any thoughts, at Brennan Riley _ at Amar Stroz. The question of today's podcast: in 27 hours, on average, do you say pizza at least 17 times? At Brennan Riley _